Imagine listening to someone who most likely has an IQ of 35, and you know standards have been lowered for them in order to fulfill a diversity quota, but yet you still have to listen to them talk about how you're mediocre. This is the reality of woke white libtards, and particularly liberal white men that vote Democrat. This is the reality that they embrace. See, Jasmine Crockett is the face of the Democrat Party. She's of the 92% that votes in lockstep for the Democrat Party. And this is who the Democrat Party platforms. Now, this is the mainstream narrative that comes from a congresswoman, which is openly endorsing and spewing anti white racism. And it's why, out of all the demographics that I can talk crap about, it still goes without saying liberal whites that vote Democrat, despite hearing how much anti white racism comes from the party that they vote for, they are the most pathetic demographic on the face of this planet. Well, maybe not this planet, most definitely in this country, because there are a lot of European whites that are, believe it or not, more pathetic. Canadian whites as well. But anyway, she is on CNN. Again, she's a sitting congresswoman, representative in Texas, which shows you Texas still have a lot of problems. But, they have a lot of Negroes in that state, especially certain portions of that state. But anyway, she gets on CNN, falsely claims that 80% of violent crimes happen by white supremacists. And then she calls Trump a white supremacist in the White House, which hopefully she gets sued for. And then she goes on this diatribe claiming that someone like her has to work harder. And even though she called out some, Republican white women, she still ultimately generalized, saying that all white boys, whether they be Republican or Democrat, are mediocre. And you have to ask yourself, well, what type of white dudes, like, what's the face, what's the voice of the type of white dudes that, despite hearing all this, and again, Jasmine Crockett is just the most recent example. This has been a mainstream media narrative for decades. You know, actually, if you remember, during Joe Biden's presidency, he went to an HBCU and said the biggest threat to America is white supremacy. The biggest terroristic threat, not these criminal Negroes or these cartels or the fentanyl coming from foreign nations. No, white supremacy. And he said this at an HBCU to a demographic of people who feel as though they are entitled to be violent criminals, particularly against white people because of the racism and slavery narrative. So again, it's not just coming from a congresswoman, it came from the president, the prior president, this narrative about white supremacy and white supremacists. And again, the type of white people that vote this way, despite literal crosshairs being put on their backs, well, it's the type of people like Aiden Clark's father. Aiden Clark, who I believe was a 10 or 11-year-old white boy that got killed by an illegal Haitian because, he was able to have access to a vehicle and he struck and killed the boy. And his father made a speech saying that he wished a 60-year-old white man. And again, the fact that he specified the age, and he rather an old white man killed his son instead of the Haitian illegal. Because again, white liberal cucks like him, their biggest concern aren't rapists or killers or thieves. they're racist or being called racist. That's their greatest concern in life. And it just goes to show you that these woke white libs, they aren't only cucked themselves, but they've shown they're willing to sacrifice their own flesh and blood, their own offspring, just so they don't get categorized as racist. And again, the Jasmine Crockett's of the world take full advantage of this and spew her racist rhetoric. Again, it's why I said in previous video, I have no issue with white nationalists having a mainstream platform or being a part of this administration or the next administration. Because if we're going to play this fairness and equality game, I know it's not real, but if we're going to play this game, then if you got racist black nationalists spewing nonsense, then you might as well allow the others to do the same. But the difference is, you're going to stumble on more facts than fiction. Because again, to say 80% comes from white supremacy, the violent crime in this country, I mean, we know that's not true. We know the overwhelming majority of violent crime comes from black men. And black women, like Jasmine Crockett, have shown that they're even more violent than white men. But we know, especially the privilege that comes to women in general, but particularly black women, they're able to get away with violent crimes. I mean, again, because they're not even statistically counting the violent acts like throwing a fit at a Popeyes or at a grocery store, which you can commonly find videos of that, or at a Chuck E. Cheese. They're not even counting those things. But again, you really have to be a truly self hating, coward, pathetic person to be white and vote Democrat, and especially to be white, heterosexual male and vote Democrat. That's why there's no hope for people like that. There's no possibility of unity for people that's willing to endorse hate against themselves and sacrificing their own children to insufferable, hateful, lunatic black women like Jasmine Crockett, who provide nothing, absolutely zero to society, unless you think negativity is something to provide.